It's a pleasure to welcome you to the Downtown Revitalization Initiative Community Update. I've been practicing that. It's quite a mouthful. It's especially exciting to see time to come together to see our DRI projects. Isn't it great to see the Market Center building near completion? We are so excited about the momentum this project has gained. Our South and Elm Street neighborhood is being reborn right in front of our eyes. This project obviously has a lot of moving parts, and there's a ton to report about all of them. But before we launch into that, it's important to recognize that getting to this point has taken the efforts of a wide range of residents and partners over several years. It's not the project of any one person or any one mayoral administration. Most municipal projects can be described as a kind of a relay race, and this one began with Ed Bartholomew and Mayor Jack Diamond. They launched us off the blocks in this race, and Mayor Hall and others kept pace during COVID and during the bit of a recession and the high interest rates that flew up during Mayor Hall's time in office. And now the baton has been passed to my administration. And as the anchor leg, it's our responsibility, our privilege to bring the DRI over the finish line together. It's an important reason that I will not be the only update speaker tonight. Neighbors and partners who've been with the DRI and involved with the DRI project are here to help us get an accurate and balanced picture as possible. So on tonight's agenda, we'll begin with all the work that has been completed so far. Then we'll review the Market Center, which includes the Glens Falls Farmers Market as its anchor tenant. Then we'll talk about the South and Elm Street construction phases 1 and 2, the rehab of the buildings of South and 36 Elm Street and 41 and 45 South Street, and the private investment that comes along with this project. And then we'll also review 36 Inc., our local business development and wayfinding center. And then finally, we'll discuss the DRI as a catalyst for investment and the multiplier effect that it's already having on downtown development. To return the history of this project, many of you will recall that New York State introduced the Downtown Revitalization Initiative program in the spring of 2016. 10 communities were awarded $10 million each, and they were challenged to, and I quote, transform downtown neighborhoods into vibrant centers that offer high quality of life and become magnets for redevelopment, business growth, jobs, and housing creation. The focus has always been on revitalizing downtown neighborhoods and leveraging the development and business growth, the jobs, and the housing that come along with it. The city of Glens Falls was one of the 10 communities awarded in the first round of the DRI. And it should be noted that we were the smallest city that year on the list. Within a year, Glens Falls had formed a local planning committee that collected community input in a series of well-attended sessions and a proposed range of projects. The members of that local planning committee continue to be involved in seeing our DRI to completion. Some of them will be your presenters tonight, and others are in the room as well. Reading through our 2017 proposal, it's interesting to note how much of it has changed through present day and carried through unchanged through present day. At the same time, our DRI has not been static. It has been and continues to be alive and evolving. For example, the original plans of the business incubator, a commercial kitchen, and the market were to be housed in a single 20,000 square foot building. As it became clear that such a building was far too expensive and inflexible, the plan was revised. Also, the original plan called for broadband expansion in our downtown, and this was accomplished without using any DRI dollars, so it was dropped from the project. On the other hand, the need for more housing in our city has become clearer in the years since the DRI was originally planned, and as a result, the housing component has expanded accordingly. One thing has remained constant is the guiding mission and logic of the DRI to leverage the original $10 million award for the development of a strong, vibrant downtown that is key to this city and other cities' quality of life. And if you walk around our downtown today, the effects of our projects are already apparent and obvious. You'll hear a lot more about this information from our speakers today, but I want to return to my calling this a relay race. Well, we now have the baton firmly in hand, we've made the final turn, and we've entered the home stretch. When we finish this race, here is what we will have accomplished. We will have 3 completely renovated historic buildings. Yes, I just called Sandy's a historic building. That ought to make you laugh if you've ever were in there when I was. It was tough. 88 new 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, where a great majority of them are what we call workforce rental rates. They're aimed at middle income, working class people. We'll have 4,000 square feet of new commercial space on South Street, as well as 2 new restaurants on South, in the old Sandy's and the old Hot Shots buildings. We'll also have a 6,000 square foot special event market area that will host our Saturday's Farmers Market and also be available to rent for community events throughout the year. And a 4,500 square foot commercial kitchen and local business development center, and a regional wayfinding system. After 8 years of work across 3 administrations, the Glens Falls DRI project has leveraged the original $10 million award into more than $48 million of total investment. That's nearly $14 million in state and federal funds, $30.6 million in private investment, and for the city's long-term stake in this massive redevelopment project, how much? $3.6 million, or when you do the math, 7.5% of the total investment happening just in this DRI. This relay race has clear winners, and it's our beloved city of Glens Falls and all its residents, the business owners and visitors that are here and live here. We have a vibrant, economically active downtown that is something that we've all created together. It is a true Glens Falls difference that's recognized statewide. It is a difference that our DRI extends and strengthens, and it is something that we can all take pride in. I know I am so very proud just to be a part of this. I'd now like to introduce to you Jim Thatcher, he's our DRI consultant, and he'll begin the program by discussing all of the DRI projects that we've completed so far.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the introduction. For those of you that don't know me, again, I'm Jim Thatcher. I work for CT Mail Associates here in Glens Falls. And if you don't recognize me, it's probably because I spend most of my time in the weeds, helping the mayor and the administration going forward, extract the actual money that you saw on this last slide and get that actually into the city's coffers to pay for these projects. So it's kind of grunt work. It's not too super glamorous. But that's sort of what I do every day. So I'm going to show you several of the DRI projects already completed to date, so you can get a sense of the power of those investments and the impact that the state funding is having on the downtown. And I'm going to highlight some of the public and private investments you may not have even realized came out of the DRI. So one of the first completed DRI projects in Glens Falls, in the whole state, that we're told, is the relocation and expansion of SUNY Adirondacks Culinary School to 14 Hudson. This state-of-the-art facility includes 2 commercial kitchens, a sit-down restaurant, seasoned, classrooms, food storage facilities to help train approximately 30 students per semester in culinary arts, food preparation, and other restaurant and food management type skills, so they can go out into the workforce. If you haven't dined at Seasoned, I recommend it. I've only been there once, a couple weeks ago. It was a French-themed cuisine night. It was hard to order because everything was in French, but it was truly a unique experience to watch the students in the kitchen to the side there to actually do the cooking. And it was pretty delicious. So I welcome you to go there. So building from the momentum created by the Arts District of Glens Falls, for those of you that may have walked the Arts Trail, which was formed by a collaborative group of artists several years before the DRI, the city worked with the Arts District to significantly ramp up the amount and impact of public art within the downtown. So from simple projects such as sidewalk stamps, banners marking the Arts Trail, to 3 new murals at prominent locations, it's easy to see how public art can add texture and vibrancy to our downtown, while also celebrating the region's history and the spirit of our artistic community. And here we give credit, you see the names of the artists, we certainly want to give credit to them for doing those murals. There's the third one, plus the one on the Wood Theater. We also like to thank the Wood Theater and 2 private property owners for hosting the murals. That's not something every building owner necessarily would want to do, but we had willing participants. And one of the artists, Hannah Williams, that's hers with the bear. She actually has other artwork throughout downtown in several businesses. So if you're interested in seeing some of her other stuff, you sort of can go on a scavenger hunt of sorts and sort of see where she's put some of her other works for on behalf of some businesses, which is kind of cool. So we know public art is important to revitalizing the downtown, but certainly so is fostering small, locally owned businesses and cultural institutions. The DRI included funding for a Shark Tank type of business development program known as GF Drive. Mayor Dan Hall was actually the inspiration behind that. I think the show he actually modeled it after was Cleveland Hustle, which was a LeBron James inspired show. But Shark Tank was a little more well known and ran longer on TV. I think Cleveland Hustle had 1 season maybe. So, but this program provided funds for startups and existing businesses that relocated to empty storefronts throughout the downtown. So it was a way to attract businesses to empty buildings, not just on South Street, but throughout the downtown, as far down as halfway down Warren Street on the edge of the downtown. In total, 13 businesses were assisted, and each owner was required to contribute 20% or more of their own equity or cash for their startup or expansion projects. And these were projects as simple as a restaurant needing pots and pans, believe it or not, or prep tables, to items such as walk-in coolers or freezers, or desks and workstations, like you have at WorkSmart in the old TD Bank building. Many of these businesses remain open today, and we hope they're thriving within the downtown as a result of the DRI and their own investments. In addition to GF Drive, the DRI funded 2 building facade projects, 19 Exchange Street, the old Rock Hill Bakehouse Cafe, if you remember going back that far, and 220 Glen Street, which was Achenbach's Jewelers for a long time. Nothing wrong with those buildings, but they were a little worn out, a little tired, and the investments that those new owners have made far exceeded what the DRI contributed, again, creating that leverage effect that the mayor spoke about. The DRI was also able to help some nonprofits, both with programming and marketing support, such as new websites, as well as 2 nonprofits I think you'll certainly be familiar with that needed some capital building upgrades. Those included the Wood Theater, which last year replaced all of their HVAC equipment on their roof. I don't know, it was a 1 or 2 day operation with a huge crane, if you were around that particular day. That was an over $225,000 investment by the Wood Theater. And the Park Theater Foundation modernized their internet and connectivity equipment, their networking equipment within the theater, to help streamline their reservation and ticketing process. Both capital upgrades supported by the DRI. Finally, as my piece of this comes to an end, I think we're all glad to see the long-awaited streetscaping project completed last fall, thankfully, for those of you that survived the construction of that area of Elm Street. Exchange and Park Street. I know Exchange was extremely nasty and hard to kind of navigate. As you have today, although these are photos of sort of in progress, but all new sidewalks, street trees, the lighting to match the rest of the downtown, which the city has been investing in over the last 10 or 15 years. And on top of the sidewalk and curbing work that you can see today, well, once the ice melts, I guess you'll really see it one of these days. The city also invested in additional sewer and stormwater drainage work under the sidewalks, primarily so we don't have to rip up the new sidewalks anytime soon, but also to make that infrastructure long-lasting and more cost-efficient for you, the taxpayer, for you, the residents. There you have it, not all of it, but a lot of good hard work that went in to complete those projects to date. And to see what's next to be completed with the DRI on South Street, I turn it over to Jeff Flagg.
Do I have one of those glamour jobs we're referring to that I wasn't aware of? Oh, yeah, you said you didn't have those glamour jobs. Thank you very much. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jeff Flagg. I'm the Economic Development Director for the city. I was actually hired in 2021 after, as Mayor Collins mentioned, Ed Bartholomew passed away at a very untimely death in the middle of 2020. The DRI was several years old at the time. It was moving, although slowly. It had been sort of held up a little bit by COVID, and then of course his death sort of contributed to that. So when I was hired by Mayor Hall, then Mayor Hall at the time in 2021, one of the things I was, of course, was charged with doing was getting the DRI moving forward again, which really took, it's again accelerating when Mayor Collins was elected later that year. So as the mayor indicated in his opening comments, the Market Center was and remains the capstone project of the DRI, the centerpiece of South Street revitalization that also received the largest piece of DRI funding. Of course, what that meant is, at a practical level, was that the Market Center was also the project most impacted by events like the pandemic and the subsequent skyrocketing construction costs and the like, such that the city went through a number of revisions from the original 20,000 square foot building where the current pavilion is now to the 6,000 square foot event center that we're now constructing with adjacent facilities and 36L next door that we'll be covering here in a few minutes. Ironically, the real key, I think, to the truly transformative nature of the success of the DRI and the real opportunity to revitalize South Street at scale came when Mayor Hall and my predecessor, Ed Bartholomew, were given the opportunity to tear down several buildings and renovate two others that were really dragging down the entire South Street neighborhood. The old OTB, which is the building here, and the Juice and Jar building, these were both always slated for demolition as part of the original DRI plans, but around 2019, and this is about 2 years after the DRI was awarded, the building, the Daily Double building, this big large building here at 59 South Street went up for sale. And the city then realized that the impact of the DRI could be extended an additional block essentially from the Elm Street block coming down from Glen, an additional block down to essentially Broad Street where the former Rite Aid is. And you can see evidence of that as we'll talk about some of the leverage development that's going on along that block with new businesses, new redevelopment of other properties. Of course, the purchase and demolition of those buildings took quite a bit of time, and the city managed to secure a $750,000 Restore New York grant to aid in the cost of demolishing and stabilizing the adjacent buildings that we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. Once the lots were cleared and prepped, it took us several different concepts to finally get down to a design within our budget that would provide the space and flexibility we needed to run all kinds of different events. But I think the design we settled on really is going to be just what the doctor ordered. So the primary goals for this facility, as we sort of sat down and looked at what we needed to do and how we were going to get it where we wanted it, was really threefold. First, we wanted to create a space with limited sort of operating expenses. I know that sounds like a simple way to begin the conversation, but essentially what we wanted to do is to make sure that this facility could be used by as many groups and organizations that wanted to without making it this enormous undertaking that you'd have to spend $1 zillion to try and utilize. So for instance, when we're talking about events like the farmer's market, the anchor tenant of the facility, right, there really aren't any significant costs involved in the operations of this. There's the electric lighting that I'll show you in just a little bit inside. But aside from electricity and some basic upkeep, it's really designed to be a very flexible and durable building. Most of the costs that would be incurred, because we have such a flexible structure, it allows us to do lots of different things, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But what that means is many of those costs sort of depend on the kind of activity that you want to hold. So obviously, if you're looking to do something that requires catering, food catering, we do have the LEC's facility next door, 36 inch, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, right? That's available to you, but it's not something that's incumbent on you just as you want to use the space for some kind of event. The second priority goal was to create a facility that was as flexible as possible, meaning creating a space that would work for all sorts of kinds of public and private activities. Again, starting with the farmer's market, but as the mayor mentioned, as sort of the capstone thing, we wanted to make sure that this could be used by as many different kinds of activities as possible. And you can see this is the basic view of the space, but again, once you fill it up, you have all sorts of different kinds of events that can take place inside. A third primary goal was to make sure that the space was as efficient as possible. The phrase that architects sometimes use to try and refer to architectural design is that form follows function. If you've gone down and seen the facilities being constructed, it is a little bit of an unconventional design, but what that is the important idea is to allow as much flow as possible, both inside and outside the building. So you can see that you have, as you go around the building here, the lane you have around, you have, let's say, tables, vendors set up around. Also inside, on both sides, both inside and outside. So essentially, you have sort of concentric circles. This was important because some of the earlier versions that we had designs for, in one of the first 2019 versions, the storyline was that it had enough room for 20 vendors. Now, as we were talking to both the farmers market about possible expansion, or even where they were at the time, or as the mayor was looking at sort of more ambitious events, the idea was that we needed to have many more. So we're looking at as many as possibly 60 tables and vendors you could have just on site itself here. We also want to have space available for vendors outside the facility. The challenge, of course, in trying to do that on a site that, although it seems large at 3 lots, is really not a huge space, was that you have to allow for a fire lane around the space, which some of the earlier versions just didn't allow, especially if you had vehicles that were sort of parked there permanently. So what you could do is you could set up some vendors in certain places here. In here, this is a little musical area back here. And then what that does is it allows them to extend but still be able to move quickly if you had some sort of an event where you need an emergency event of some kind. And then finally, one of the things we looked at was, in addition to how we were going to sort of organize the space itself, we wanted to recognize the fact that, if you're really going to have the kind of ambitions that the DRI envisions and the kind of growth that it engenders in the downtown area, you really want to look at expansion for larger events as the farmers market grows, for instance, or as you have larger events that require space even beyond what you can fit here. And so what you then look at, and again, this is from the early 2019 renditions, you can have a very easy way to sort of close Elm Street there in between the buildings that are being constructed. Really with sort of no substantial impact to the traffic flow. One of the benefits you have of this arrangement here is that, as you see in the sort of layout here, you can see that there's actually alleyways that run through. This was very intentionally done to sort of create a flow of space between the market center itself and the street out here in Elm Street. Incidentally, as we'll talk about, the local market incubator that we're going to have here is actually right in the middle of that. So as flow works around this, right, it becomes a flow-through space as well. And in good weather, you might have doors that open on both sides of that allow sort of large doors, and you can actually have that become part of the flow-through space. So you have in certain events, you could put them here, even something as simple as the farmer's market expanding. Beyond that, you can also move into closing off South Street. So as you get to larger events, larger festivals, multiple day things, you may have a situation where you want to actually go out onto South Street, either instead of, or I guess in this case, in addition to Elm Street. So you can see that you have an entire sort of complex. Now you've sort of included this sort of 3 building block, sorry, not building block, like this center block, 3 buildings that sort of create this sort of flow through space. And again, you can see the circular rotation you have around here that also sort of encourages pedestrians to go out onto the businesses that are just beginning to sort of show up on South Street. And then we anticipate quite a few more, obviously, as someone like Chris Patton is building across the street. And just to give you an idea, without going, really what we're discovering is the sort of the world is our oyster as far as the kinds of uses that we could put this building to. These are a number of opportunities we've sort of looked at. We've been approached by a number of organizations and entities, to have small events, family events, some school events. Again, the idea is to make this as flexible a facility as possible so that we can have the kinds of events. So obviously we can accommodate something as the farmers market continues their anchor tenancy. They can also expand, but then we can also add different kinds of activities and events. Some that may move here, some that may crop up as we have opportunities. So we're really looking forward to the opportunities that this facility, and really in some ways it's sort of a complex, presents. And with that, what I want to do is I want to introduce Steve McCarty, who is the program, what do I call yourself? Are you the program project manager? Project manager for Bonaccio Development and Bonaccio Construction. Steve's going to talk a little bit about the facilities that Bonaccio, in response to the request for proposals that we got, became the partner in a lot of the private development that we're doing here on and around South Street.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Collins and the City of Glens Falls for hosting and extending the invitation for us to provide a progress report, if you will, to our Market Square, comprised of 41 and 45 South Streets, as well as 36 Elm. I'm Steve McCarty, Bonaccio Development, Mike Estwick, Bonaccio Construction. Bonaccio is no stranger to difficult, complex, involved projects. Old buildings fall into each one of those categories. These being no strangers to that. Each building creates its own identity, has their own story to tell. Current buildings have served the city very well through the years. The picture tells 1,000 words, and I think the next handful of slides will really lend true to that. Challenges. Oh my God, what did we get ourselves into? So really, challenges and existing conditions, the following slide, really go hand in hand. Challenges of, challenges, just working in a city.
Speaking soft.
Space. We've secured street closure permits to be able to work safely across both sides of Elm Street. Just unknown conditions, also known as surprises. Uncovered many surprises. Hopefully we are nearing the end of that. I'm not sure that Mike would agree with me yet. But I think without further ado, I can't take any more credit from Mike and his team. So I think Mike can speak to some of the existing conditions and where we are today.
Thank you, Steve. Again, my name is Mike Estwick with Bonaccio Construction. I've been managing this project since the start of construction, which was roughly last September. So you see some pictures up here just of kind of what we got into roughly day one. The two buildings on South Street were vacant probably at least 5 years or more. 36 Elm Street, I believe, 20 some odd years. So a lot can happen to a building when it's left vacant, especially old buildings with roofs that were, at the end of their useful life. Buildings that you know, everyone did their best to secure them, but, you know, nothing is 100%. So, you know, Sandy's, for example, you know, there were parts of it that were left kind of as it was. You can see the bar, the menu. Everyone who comes and works in these buildings has a story to tell about Sandy's or about Hot Shots, and some are more colorful than others. But you know, there was half-empty beer bottles in there. That was the easy stuff to clean up. You know, there was probably a multi-generational family of pigeons living in Hot Shots. They created conditions that were less easy to clean up and a biohazard. Obviously, you see the roof here on the top of 36. You know, just years of pinhole leaks, roof drains that had failed, lots of water, and water is no friend to old buildings. So, add on to that some of the historic tax credits that are involved and the requirements to preserve certain elements of these buildings present some unique challenges. So the picture on the lower left there, that's the first floor of 36 Elm. You see the tin ceiling there. We're preserving that tin ceiling. Certainly there are, you know, panels that are beyond repair, but we've taken it down. We've kind of organized it in order of, you know, good, you know, acceptable, and the stuff that's unusable gets disposed of properly. But you know, that will all get put back in place. And that's going to be on all three floors of that building.
And that was a requirement for the
Historic tax credits. Yep. Similar story on the first floor of 41 and 45 with the tin ceiling. So, you know, it has been a challenge. You know, Steve was joking that, you know, we think we're through most of the surprises. I say that, but then every day something new pops up. But I think most of the big issues we've worked through, lots of structural repairs, a lot of rotted wood, you know, from the roof and on down as water found its way through those buildings. You know, what we see here, this is the south side of 45. This is going to face the new market. That has been resheathed. That will get new cedar wood siding. You know, the brick, the masonry, the concrete on 36. A lot of that will be repaired with, you know, historic guidelines, color match grout, etc. This here on the right, this is one of the windows in Sandy's. I don't know if anyone has been by the buildings recently. We recently took off a lot of the plywood that was covering those windows. So the building from the outside has been kind of looking, you know, you see activity on the street. Now I think you walk by, you can see these windows that we've been rebuilding and rehabbing. So all of the windows in the apartments in Sandy's are going to be original. There might have new glass, they might have some new, you know, wood pieces where we had to take an existing frame and replace side of a sash or something, for example. Hand restored, yeah. So we've had a carpenter in there working diligently for months, repairing these windows. I think, you know, over on the lower left, this is one of the eyebrows on the South Street side of Sandy's. This is from the roof. Obviously deteriorated. It's a significant element of that building. Structurally, it's a little wobbly. So we had to structurally restore that and able to get roofing up and over it. So, you know, that building has a new life long-term with good water protection. And it's getting reborn. So you see here on the right, these are going to be the new restored location of the original entry stairs into the levels 2 and 3 of Sandy's. So Sandy's, if you look at the front of the building, the central door is the residential entrance. That's being restored to how it was before it was converted. There was an original stair in this location that was removed at one point. So you see the new stairs is in now.
Just a little history, do you know why the stairs were removed?
I do not.
Because Richie didn't want us up there inspecting the roof because it was leaking, so he took the stairs out so that we couldn't get up into the.
So you didn't see the kitchen exhaust that was going into the second floor bedroom, and the inch of grease we cleaned off the wall?
We
Yeah.
put a new roof on.
Yes, new roof, new stair.
That is awesome,
Over on the other images here, you just see, new work going in, new modern, MEP systems. Over on, I think this would be of interest to the city particularly, the top left image there, that's that's the first floor of 36 Elm, of the new space. That floor, just through years and years of water coming in, was significantly deteriorated and structurally had sagged. So it was out up to 6 inches in certain places. So I mean, literally, you could see it. The floor it looked like an ocean. So we tore it out and rebuilt it. So new floor system, new structure, and flat. So it's been a lot of work. I think we've been, like I said, we started in September. Come fall, I think, we'll be nearing completion. A lot of work ahead of us, but we are underway, and it's going to be very exciting when it's done.
We're probably out of time. Is that true? So just to dovetail off of what Mike said, this is just a very high level, broad stroke, project schedule. As Mike said, we began October, late September 24. Currently, we're nearing the end of the stabilization phase, and what that is we've done all the hazardous materials mitigation, asbestos, lead, mold, just really stripping back the years of time, and really just got back to the structurally sound, clean slate. And now the fun begins with putting it all back together with a targeted early fall of 25 of this year wrap up. And this is far left, that's Sandy's in all her glory in the fall. So, yeah. Oop, okay. And this is just a good bird's eye view of our current projects, 36 Elm, 41 and 45 South, as well as the hopeful near future of 25 to 33 South Street. And that's our new construction affordable housing project. We're working diligently with the state to identify a start date for that, hopefully soon.
So yeah, you're hoping within the month, but you can't tell because it's HCR, right? But
Yes.
will you tell them a little bit about those, what you see in green at the top of the frame, at least even knowing that you can't control the state, but your hope is to break ground on that phase 2 in the next month if you can, right?
I wouldn't say break ground, but hopefully receive notification. We're targeting, I would say, early to late spring, to break ground, shovel in the ground. 70 unit affordable, true affordable housing, roughly 75,000 square feet. Mixed use, commercial on the lower ground level floor facing South Street, in mixed income. And that should really tie the walkability of, Glen Street really down South Street. And I believe that's the closing piece to the DRI initiative. I believe that. So more excitement to follow, hopefully soon.
Thank you.
Well, me? Want me to introduce myself?
Yes, please speak directly into the mic.
Okay, thanks, Patrick. Good evening, everyone. I'm Judy Calogero. I'm here today representing the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation, of which I serve as one of the board members. And I think I might be secretary of the board, correct? The mayor has me sign a few things, so I think so. I've lived in Glens Falls a long time, almost 40 years, and I've been very involved in the DRI almost from the beginning, as a volunteer for the city. And I'm usually talking about housing or affordable housing, but today I'm going to talk about economic development and the city's plans for 36 Elm Street. First, let me just start with talking a little bit about the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation, or what many of us just call the LDC for short. It is a public authority. It was formed as a not-for-profit corporation by the city of Glens Falls in 1984, so it's been around a long time. And it's governed by a board of directors that are selected by the mayor and by the common council. Most municipalities in New York State have similar public authorities as the LDC. And we're all required to comply with state rules, including the State Public Authorities Accountability Act, in addition to the direction given to us by the mayor and the guidance by other municipal officials, including the common council. Here in Glens Falls, the LDC was formed to promote economic stability and growth and development of private sector employment, and to lessen the burden of government for our citizens. The day-to-day management of the LDC is led by Glens Falls City staff, including Patrick Dowd, Jeff Flagg, and Suzanne Scott, who I don't think is with us here today. The LDC has supported numerous retail, commercial, and industrial enterprises in the city, and has really helped the city largely to bring federal and state resources to the community. And we've also taken ownership control of buildings and land when necessary. And this includes 36 Elm Street, which is my role today, is really to talk about 36 Elm. The city has owned it and controlled it for a long time. There's a long history of what's gone on in that building. It's been very difficult. It was at one point considered a brownfield, and I won't go into those details, but we certainly could talk about that or answer any questions that you may have. And so, let me see if I can get this right here. So this is 36 Elm, and the design of the market center was such that it was not going to be sufficient in terms of its square footage to provide all of the services and activities that we had planned and hoped for. And so as the LDC went to sell this property, we thought of the option of taking control of the first floor space and possibly also the basement, because of its proximity and its closeness to the market center, or what I call the Leaf Building. But its great proximity and the ability to walk between those two buildings across a small parking lot, we thought was ideal in terms of being able to add the very activities and things that we wanted initially for the market center, but are now planned for this 36 Elm Street. And so we will probably set up through the LDC a separate entity that will take control of that. And for now, I'm going to call it 36 Inc. And maybe at some point I'll have a different name. But we have agreed to do a 10-year lease agreement with Bonaccio Development, who now owns 36 Elm, to take control of that first floor space. And this is consistent with both our mission as the LDC and our support for the business development in the community. And it was also part of our vision, as I said, concerning our plans for the market center initially, and allows us to expand upon and include that. And also, because the LDC owned this building as well as other buildings, and several of which we've sold, we've generated and raised revenue that is going to help us to cover the expense of operating this building. And so signing a 10-year lease with Venatio to take control of that first floor space is not completely within our budget, but many of the first years are within our budget, and our plans going forward are to bring partners in with us to help us to expand upon that and to generate revenue. So, this is our plan for, or our images of the interior spaces for 36 Elm. Again, first floor, wide open design. It's the former garment factory, as you may know if you've been here in Glens Falls as long as I have. And the space itself, its openness, lends itself to several different functions that will support and complement the market center. And it includes a commercial kitchen, a local maker's market, a wayfinding system, and public restrooms. This is the floor plan that we've now kind of settled on. There's been a couple different renditions of it in some of Jeff's earlier slides. You probably saw some different I'm sorry, let me go back. But this is the current layout that we believe works the best for this first floor space. It was developed by SWBR, the architect for the building. It's approximately 4,600 square feet. And it's designed similar to the market center to have this maximum flow or flexibility of space. This is the commercial kitchen. The plan is to have this as a catering kitchen for events that would be both held at the market center or possibly in other locations. And I think that it could serve a number of different functions. Again, catering for off-site events. It could produce a production of prepared foods like ready-to-eat meals, production of value-added packaged foods like jams and jellies or baked goods. It could be a teaching or a demonstration kitchen, possibly to be used by SUNY Adirondack if they needed more space than what's available at Seasoned. And also maybe space for the farmers market or other city vendors to use on the days when they're using Market Center. Here is what we're referring to now as the market space. And this would allow other functions of the space to be within the market to support both regional goods, including the farmers market. We have been working most recently with Taste of New York and Cornell Cooperative Extension on setting up this part of the facility. So I think many of you may be familiar with Taste of New York. It is a New York State initiative that was launched over a decade ago to highlight the quality, diversity, and economic impact of food and beverages grown and produced in New York State. Taste New York aims to create new opportunities for producers, events, retail locations, and partnerships. There are currently, I think, 65 Taste New York locations around the state. Many of them are in rest areas, and maybe you have visited some of them, but not all of them are in rest areas. And more in keeping with kind of our plans for 36 Elm, I want to share with you what Taste New York did in both Dutchess County and in Broome County, where they have set up operations that are much more in sync with our plans here. Cornell Cooperative Extension operates a number of these facilities, and they also help to plan and to run them. And that is part of our ongoing discussion with them about coming here into Glens Falls. They already have facility at exit 18, so they're familiar with our area. But what they have at exit 18 is rather small, and that's it. And not, it is not, it's not a controlled space or a manned space, if you will. It's limited both in terms of its size and location. But it has brought Taste New York and Cornwall Cooperative into our area because of its proximity, and they've become very interested and excited about the possibility of doing more, and in particular in the city of Glens Falls. And so at some point in time, we hope to have something more formal to talk to you about, but we did want you to know that that's an ongoing discussion and something that we think could be very positive here. And then let me talk lastly about at the 36 Elm market where we want to have what's called a wayfinding system. This is to help visitors who are looking to identify vendors, including restaurants, shops, retailers, museums, theaters, parks, others, how to get information about them, how to get there. And so our wayfinding section of 36 Elm will include information about those vendors and how to reach to them. It will also connect them to our farmers market and others that are located in the area and also outside of the area throughout the county and nearby. And so with that, let me turn this back over.
Before you turn it over, Judy, one thing I'd like to say about this, Judy's covered, but I want to make sure we emphasize it and re-emphasize it, is that this market or commercial kitchen is only there to promote businesses that are here in Glens Falls and in the region, throughout the region. Not to be a market that might try to compete with a real, like a grocery store, or even a small market such as Park and Elm. The object is for you to get products that are made locally and then be able to find them on the wayfinding system. So if you buy some honey that Tom Wells makes, that you're immediately go over to the wayfinding system, and his product, we'll call him 19, his number is 18. Then you tap in 18 on your phone, and it says how to get a hold of Tom Wells, or how to get to his farm if there's a farm that goes to it. It's not about bringing people here to make money for its sake. It's about promoting the businesses that are throughout Glens Falls and the surrounding region. There are subcommittees set up right now of community members that for each of the three pieces that Judy's talked about, the wayfinding, the market itself, and then the commercial kitchen. And the object in each one of those is how can a commercial kitchen locally help a local baker who may not be able to afford a commercial kitchen, utilize that space on evenings or weekends so that they can see if they can grow their business market. All right? It's not about creating a commercial kitchen for itself to make money. And that's why the LDC is perfect in this. Their whole mission is to help grow businesses, not to be in the business. It is not a long-term thing that the city of Glens Falls is going to run these. We need to help to get this back in the community so that it's a community space. So now I'll stop.
Okay. No, thank you for that, Mayor. And let me introduce Jim Siplon, CEO of Warren County EDC, to come up and speak next.
Nothing like being last. The mayor, you're right. He bats cleanup. I'm the guy who's supposed to get on second base. This mood here, we got to turn this up a bit. This should be a celebration. I was on the original committee, and you know what happened 10 years ago is I came here to help launch this business, and Ed and others began the process that led to the DRI. 10 years is a long, long time for people to be convicted to something that is designed to bring value to our community. And a whole generation of leadership and people were involved in that. And I gotta tell you, I'm proud of the fact that we did it. Everywhere I go in the state, in the economic development world, they talk about the things that have happened in Glens Falls. And remember what the DRI is about. You know, you heard the mayor talk about all the goals. It really comes down to two really important things. We want to revitalize our downtowns. Ask yourself whether or not Glens Falls is in a better place than it was 10 years ago. I remember it, you remember it. There was 2 restaurants in town and they weren't open a lot of times. And there was a lot of plywood, okay? And it wasn't because of a lack of effort. It was because we didn't have alignment with resources, together with dreams, together with concerted, consistent, long-term effort. And what do we have today? We have an ecosystem that has more than 20 restaurants. I spent the afternoon with somebody who's looking to build a new one here. And the reason they came here is that they were from Glens Falls. And they recognized what was happening while they were running a big restaurant in a big metropolitan center on the East Coast. And they said, I gotta go home. That's where the action is. That's where it's happening. And then they asked how we could help launch them. And their efforts are ambitious and they're completely aligned with this. And they're built on the things like the culinary center and the energy that's been created here. I remember talking to Chris Duffy about this, you know, bringing the culinary center downtown, and there was reticence about it, not because she didn't want to be downtown, but because they didn't have a facility downtown. They weren't quite sure how it would work. What a home run this is. Every day we have between 30 and 50 students from SUNY Adirondack making the trek back and forth from the campus into the city. And from that culinary center, we have birthed literally double-digit number of restaurants that were not here before. We have put ourselves on the culinary map of New York. These are spectacular accomplishments that have already been delivered by this, but I just start with the fact that the downtown itself is just completely different. You heard the mayor talk about the fact that the goal of the state is to catalyze investment. Well, the state made the first $10 investment. And I have to tell you, it's a little shaky to call it an investment because they kind of hold it in front of you and then you have to run really hard to try to catch it. Okay, and getting that money is not easy. It's a reimbursable grant that takes a lot of effort to really be able to fully utilize. And yet, a whole group of people have done that now, including Jim Thatcher and others, to great success. Let's focus on this one more time, because there is not a success story in New York that is as good as the one you're seeing here. The state put $10 million up, and they hoped they might get $10 to $15 million worth of levered investment. And what did they get here? More than $40 million worth of investment. Some of it was public, some of it was private, but a leverage of 5 times. Think about any company, whether or not they would invest something that would generate an ROI of 5 times the initial investment. And you can hear that the mayor didn't make this up. The state people literally used Glens Falls as the example of what is possible with the DRI. This is something we as a community should be really, really proud of. I also want to talk to you about some stuff that maybe isn't as obvious. Like, there's investment there are things there that did not get $1 of the DRI money. If you've ever been to the Golden Monkey, it doesn't look like something like Sandy's. It looks like something out of either Saratoga or maybe Brooklyn. It's really cool and it's really hip, and it was put there in advance of all of this development, in anticipation of the foot traffic and the additional residents that were going to be there. It created something we don't have. We're about to get more of those kind of things. In addition, you all know that we are a cultural hub. We forget how lucky we are to have the cultural assets that we do. There is no community, including Saratoga, in northern New York that has the assets that we have, and certainly none on a per capita basis. We have a symphony. We have multiple museums. We have the 9th best art collection in the state of New York. We have multiple live music venues. And we have a theater festival that has produced real Broadway shows and creates a connection, a vital connection between us and the city that we have probably started to take for granted because it's been around here for 30 years, but there's nothing like it anywhere else. These are all assets that have benefited from this investment, because when people are trying to figure out, is this still the place for us to invest our cultural money and dollars? The investment and the energy that was created by the DRI helped secure it. In fact, if you look, you will see the ATF's offices right around the corner. from what we're talking about. And I can tell you that we, as the EDC, put ourselves in very intentionally right on South Street. We relocated our offices 3 years ago. And we put ourselves in South Street because this is an example of what we want every business, whoever comes here, to see. Look out this window and see what is happening in this community and decide, is this the place you want to be? There is not a better, more optimistic place in northern New York to do that than the second floor of the Empire Theater Building, looking out on all of the development that you have heard talked about here. And I will tell you that SUNY Adirondack is doubling down. They're interested not only in running that culinary center, but they're one of the very first likely tenants in some of the commercial development that's going to occur. They're going to increase their exposure and their interaction with downtown with more facilities that allow students to come back and forth between the campus and downtown, and more of the vitality that we're all looking for. These are some of the things, you know, the building right across the street, Chris Patton, he's literally, you know, he's a very interesting guy, and he makes some amazing bets. And one of his bets is to take the building that is across the street from all of what we're talking about, which is sat waiting for somebody to step into it for a number of years, and he has begun the work. Of course, you can see what he did down the street. I gotta tell you, Chris can sometimes be a challenge to help, but I have no trouble standing behind the results of this building right around the corner from where our offices are. It is one of the things that helps redefine that new avenue, which was the Street of Dreams and is now becoming something completely different. And look at what Arrow did across the street. Ask yourself this question: do you think that Arrow would have done that if it was still the South Street of 10 or 15 years ago? I don't know whether they would have done it. Luckily, we'll never have to know, because we made the investment and they were able to come in and do what they've done to their campus, which has essentially added enormous value. We have a publicly traded company on the corner of the avenue we're talking about that is one of the 30 largest banks in America. And they've decided to build their operations and base them here, right in the middle of everything that we just talked about. There's the Golden Monkey, and if you haven't been there, it's a really funky, cool place. Sometimes too cool for me, to be honest, but I'm, because I'm aging out of the cool things, but they still let me show up every once in a while. Housing could not be more important, and you heard this notion of how many units are being slated by Bonaccio. I spend my days on the front lines of this battle for us to increase housing capacity, and there is nothing more existential to our long-term sustainable economic future than our ability to say yes to net new residents who want to be here. Unfortunately, despite all the optimism I've shared with you, we are in a demographic challenge. We are one of the oldest places and one of the oldest places in America. Our median age is nearly 50. And if we are to be successful as a community, we cannot allow our population to simply age in place every single year. 10 years from now, there will be more people drawing a check from Social Security than there will be the entire rest of the population combined, unless we're able to say yes to people who want to be here and to put them in places where we want them to be. What is a better use of South Street, the idle space and buildings, than being able to say yes to people who are desperately trying to get here and add to the fabric of our community? More students for our schools, more people who volunteer, certainly more foot traffic for our merchants, and more vitality to our place. That's why these numbers matter. And for a community our size, these are meaningful numbers. When I go around, and Judy knows this, she's one of the housing experts of the state of New York, so she knows this inside and out. But when I go around and I look at the ambition of other communities, they may create developments that have numbers that are similar to this, but they're nowhere near us in size. We've got essentially people making big bets on a community of less than 15,000 people, thinking that this place wants to be 20,000 people. And we have a plan to be able to bring them here. Maybe that was a little ambitious. I could see somebody, getting a little nervous. But I can tell you that we can easily absorb that number of people, and I would love to do it in a way that adds to our tax base and creates additional capacity for us in every dimension. All right. Mayor, I think it's time for you. I just want everybody to feel good about this. I gotta tell you, there's nothing more proud than I am than this project.
By the way, just in case anybody's wondering, the score of the basketball game is 84 Glens Falls, 38 Hudson.
Ooh, there we go. Huh? Yeah, so it's a safe bet. Look, this is an exciting time. I don't think I can follow that. I think the best thing for us to do is to come and meet you at these tripods that we have and answer any questions that you have. I think it's better than anything else we can do is come and answer your questions. We're going to have the exact same presentation tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. If you're a glutton for punishment or you don't feel that you've gotten any of these questions answered tonight, put this in your calendar if you will. We just picked the date for ribbon cutting of this market center, Friday, May 16th. We believe that all the state agencies are going to come. They are using it as a model for the rest of the state. I know that I had Mayor Perry from Lake George call me the other day. They're in the beginning of this. They're in year one of our what is it now, over an 8-year project for us. And he's seeking advice, and they're telling him, call Glens Falls. If you can do it that way, that's exactly what we want. And the last thing I'll say, with all the housing numbers that Jim shared, we've turned a corner. We've become a place that where we were dying 15 years ago to get anybody to come and invest in our community. We'd have pretty much done anything, to a point where people are coming left and right. So we're training our planning board. We're putting them through state and local training. We're making sure that we invest in our infrastructure. Jim might, when he said, geez, to get up to 20,000 to go 15 to 20,000. Remember, when I graduated in 1983 from Glens Falls High School, there was 256 people in my graduating class. Last year, I believe the number was closer to 140. So we have the infrastructure. We need to continue to invest in it in our long term, but certainly the school district could handle it. Certainly the community can handle it. If it's done right and it's protecting us, we need to protect ourselves from reckless growth. That's why we're so proud of the 3 buildings that Bonaccio, in the way that they're keeping their integrity. We do care about that. We need to work harder on it and over the next 5 years than ever before. And so please come and talk to us. I won't keep you up anymore. Thank you again. Thank you all.